What's up, guys? BioPrepV here, and today we're going to be talking about BLHeli. I actually did a BLHeli32 guide about a year, maybe a little over a year ago, where I pretty much walked you through the entire process, and I realized that I never did a BLHeliS walkthrough video, so I want to be pretty much combining both of those into one video. I'm going to show you guys where to download it, and how to set up your quads if you're using the specific pretty much protocol. And the way that you're going to know if you're using BLHeli32 ESCs opposed to BLHeliS ESCs is really if you connect to the BLHeli32 suite and it doesn't connect, try using the BLHeliS, especially if you don't know which ones you bought. Now, if you know which ones you bought, just go ahead and look at the package or something like that, and you should be able to figure out exactly what type of ESCs you do have. So let's go ahead and jump on the computer, and let's go ahead and walk through this process. All right, so we're on the computer here, of course, and we just Googled BLHeli Suite, pretty much what we did, and it comes up with this first link right here, BLHeli Suite. Click on that. It's going to bring you to this little link here. Click on that, and it'll bring you to their GitHub. So really off the bat, what we have is we have two versions. You can find BLHeli32 here, or you can find it over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to download. Go right to that link right there, and then we have all these different ones for depending on what type of computer you're using. Now, I'm going to be downloading both of them because we're going to be doing a guide on both. But we have BLHeli Suite. This is going to be for BLHeliS ESCs, and then this one right here is BLHeli32 for Mac, but we're going to be using it for Windows, so it'll be this one right here, the zip file. So just download your corresponding ones for your computer, and then unzip it, and then we'll go right to the next step. Let me go ahead and install these real quick. All right, so I went ahead and I installed these onto a folder. So I have my BLHeliS right here, and then I also have BLHeli32 as well, which is right down here. So pretty much what I'm going to do is we're going to start off with BLHeliS ESCs first. What we're going to do is we're going to open this up, and we're going to come up this screen. So what do we do with this screen? What we're going to do here is, let me go ahead and grab my quad. Right here. My budget build that I did, $120. And it flies pretty good. It does have a BLHeliS ESC in here, but you might be able to find, a better ESC than one came with, but you'll be paying a little more. But anyway, let's go ahead and connect it. So we're going to use the USB cable here, and we're going to plug it in. And we also need to make sure we have a battery as well, because we need to power up the ESC so they get their information. So we're going to go right here, and we're going to click on this. We're going to go over to, I don't have my glasses on, so it's hard to kind of see. Click on that, and then we're going to go ahead and connect. There it goes. USB serial device, which is COM8, and then click connect. And nothing's going to be pulling up right now because we need to go ahead and connect a battery. So I'm going to go ahead and get my battery, plug it into the quad, and make sure that your props are off when you do this, just in case something bad happens. So we're going to go ahead and connect it. And then we're going to go ahead and click on read setup. That's going to read all the ESCs right there. See, it has all of them right there. That's good. And then it changed the screen to this. So pretty much what you're going to be using this screen for is reversing your motor direction in your quadcopter. So right here, we can go ahead and click on, say you just wanted to change the motor 1. We just unclick those, so they're just commented out and have 1. And then we can go ahead and click here, reversed. And this is also where you can go ahead and change it to bidirectional, where you can do 3D mode if you're so eager to try that out. But I'm not going to actually change anything because this is already set up as far as I know. But we're also going to be talking about some of these other things here as well. So we have startup power here, which you don't really need to be concerned with. We do have temperature protection, which this will cut off pretty much the ESC's power once it hits that 140 degrees C, which you should never be hitting anyway. If you're hitting that, pretty much toasted your ESC anyway. That's why BLHeliS is a little bit more primitive in how it interpolates data and everything else, opposed to BLHeli32. Now we also have low RPM power protect. This is pretty much just to do with desyncs and everything else. It pretty much helps out with how it's going with all 4 motors at the same time, and it prevents desyncs. Same thing with the motor timing as well, because of how it syncs from the motor to the ESC itself. It's pretty much just the timing, kind of like your car timing in your engine. It pretty much just, it has that specific timing. It needs to hit that mark so it can get the best performance. You can mess with the motor timing, but if you're a first time goer or anything, just leave it at default. Mine's at medium, and I don't have any problems, so I'll just leave that alone. Same thing with demag compensation. This is also to do with desyncs. If you do turn this up higher, I have noticed or have heard people say you get a little better performance, but I leave it on low because if you do have it on high, it can be an increased risk of a desync and your quadcopter can fall out of the sky. So I usually leave all the BLHeliS stuff pretty much stock and alone. You don't have to worry about any of this stuff because this stuff will have to do with if you're going to be using on a fixed wing or something like that. You don't have to worry about any of that. Now this is the beacon delay. So remember, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but if you had your quadcopter plugged in for like 10 minutes or so, this is pretty much what it says here, 10 minutes, it'll start beeping. It's pretty much like a beacon that helps you locate your quad, say if you did lose it. So if you have your battery still plugged in, you might hear it beeping after a few minutes. And you can set that here. Do keep this in mind though, the lower you put this on, if it is beeping for a while, this is beeping your motors, and this can burn when your motor's out if it's beeping too long. So just keep that in mind if you do want to have it on a shorter duration. And then this is the volume, and then we also have the startup beeps volume for when you plug in your quadcopter. So it's pretty simple. Brake on stop, you want that off. This will apply voltage or something to that effect, I believe, to the motors to make them brake. You don't want that on because we have air mode, and we want the flight controller to control all of those aspects of the motors and quadcopter. So we have a PID loop and everything else that is active. We do not need to have brake on stop on. This would be good for if you have a fixed wing. One more thing before we go over to the BLHeli32, which I forgot to add, is the motors tab. So we click on the motors tab, and we can do the same exact thing that we did in Betaflight. So you can test your motor direction and test everything here. So go ahead and make sure your props are off as you confirm it right there. And you can go ahead and turn up the motors to see which way they're spinning. So right here, I'm going to go ahead and spin them up. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for BLHeliS. So let's go ahead and, like I said before, and move over to BLHeli32. So this is the main screen we do have in BLHeli32. Now this is for BLHeli32 ESCs. So pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go over what all these settings are first, and then we'll go ahead and connect the quad up. Go ahead and put this one over here. And I do have this, this is actually one of my favorite quads. I race all the time. This is my Mode 2 Ghost frame that I have, and it's actually going through a little bit of, it's a work because I'm putting a new camera in it, so I have to hook up the RX and TX to the new camera so I can control the camera and get the OSD off. Please, Foxier or Runcam, please make the OSD off from default, because unless you're flying a wing, pretty much you need to shut it off. So anyway, let's go ahead and plug in. Let's go ahead and talk about this real quick. So we have ramp up power. Temperature protection, as you can see on this one, can go up a lot higher than the BLHeliS counterpart. And I do leave it at the stock one, 140. And then we also do have motor direction just like the other one. So if you wanted to change your motor directions, either you, like I said before, you can either solder one of the wires, take one of the wires off, move it over, and swap two, and you can change the motor direction that way. Or the easiest way that I like to do it is right through this software and just go ahead and click on the motor that you want to go ahead and click on, and just click on reversed or normal or whatever you need to do to change the motor direction, and then hit save. So it's pretty easy. Then we also have minimum throttle, maximum throttle. That's all for, you don't have to worry about that since we are using D-Shot. We don't need to use any of that stuff. Then we have the same things over here as well. We have startup beep volume, beacon signal volume, and beacon delay. 10 minutes. That's pretty much the same as BLHeliS. Pretty much what this does is, if you didn't watch the beginning part of the video, is that if, say, for instance, you crash and your quad's been plugged in for about 10 minutes, it will make a little beacon and start beeping. So it'll help locate the quad as long as the battery's plugged in. But do keep in mind, if you do reduce this, it can cause some motor damage because pretty much what it's doing is beeping the motors, and that's how it's making that sound. And it can cause either hot motors, or it can even cause a motor to combust. So take that. You're probably better off using a beeper on your quad opposed to using the motors, especially for this function. Sorry about that. So now we also have PWM frequency. Now this is the one that I do turn up, and I do turn this up to 48 kilohertz. And we'll go ahead and plug the quad in here in a moment, and I'll show you guys my settings. We also have break on stop, which you do not need to use because this is for applying voltage to the motors to cause them to slow down faster. And you don't want that flying a mini quad, so don't even go ahead and enable it. It will cause the quad to act really, really weird and would not like it at all. That's why we use air mode, and we also have the PID loop on the flight controller to go ahead and compensate for that. So go ahead and go over the motor timings. Now, motor timings, you can turn this up. I've heard people turn this up to 21 degrees. I actually leave it on default because I'm mostly a freestyle pilot. I do some racing, but I am not competing at the top 1%, so I don't even have to worry about that little extra performance out of my quad. But if you are one of those people, go ahead and mess with this. You can go ahead and turn it up to about 21 to 22 degrees, and I've heard that it's kind of like advancing the timing on your engine. If you're familiar with that at all, you can kind of get that perfect timing, and it's pretty much what the timing is it's anticipating how the magnets are located and how it's pretty much coinciding with the magnets, because every magnet's opposite, so it's positive, negative, and that's how it's powering the motor and the stator. Not the stator, but it's powering the stator. So it's causing, the motor to spin. That's how pretty much motors work. But we also do have demag compensation on low. We have all this other stuff, same thing. Now, sine modulation mode, I have no clue what that is, but I do make sure it's off. And then auto telemetry is off as well. This is pretty much the telemetry that the BLHeli32 ESCs can send to the flight controller or send to, say, if you're flying a wing. You want to leave that off because we do everything in beta flight to enable these functions. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff being on. Now, if you're flying a wing, now you might want to go ahead and put that on. But mostly my audience is all, mini quads and quadcopters and everything else. So you might need to do a little more digging on some of the settings for your specific application. I do have a wing, but I don't really mess around with BLHeli really much at all. It just works. I just have it, bought it, and flies. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this quad in, and we'll show you guys a couple things that that I have set up on this quad. Let me go ahead and plug my thing in here. Plugged in my flight controller just now, and we can go ahead and click on connect. Now you might actually have to go into here and go over to BLHeli32 bootloader. You want to make sure that it's highlighted, and then you want to make sure that you have the COM8 USB serial device. Mine's on COM8, yours might be different, so just remember that. Click on connect, and then we are connected to software. So now what we do is plug in our battery. Right, we're plugged in, and then we go ahead and click on read setup, and then it has all 1, 2, 3, 4 ESCs, as you can see here. I'm using a Hobbywing X rotor 4-in-1, so that makes perfect sense. And as you can see here, a slave, 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 and this is the master. So sometimes if you change things on this one, it will change on all the other ones. So for instance, I have 48 kilohertz, as you can see. I was mentioning before, this does, I don't think I actually explained this before, but PWM frequency actually can help provide smoother motors and also provide a little more responsive motors as well. But the big takeaway is that it's pretty much providing more PWM pulses to the motors, and it's able to run them a lot more efficiently. So if you are running BLHeli32 ESCs, this will be at 24 kilohertz. So make sure that you are putting this at 48 kilohertz as well. Now there is, if you're on BLHeliS, I'll leave this little tidbit. I should have probably put it in before, but there is, those JESC. You can actually change this frequency if you're flashing with JESC, which is a special software. I think you have to pay like $1 or $2 ESC, and it actually has a lot more settings. Somebody took the time and effort to go ahead and go into all that and be able to, program it so you have additional functions. And also, if you're running on like a whoop or running on something smaller, there has been increased flight times as well from changing this to 48 kilohertz. So this would be a big thing to go ahead and try. So you can see my settings right here. So I have my ramp up power at 50%, which is pretty much default. I don't remember I changed it. Low voltage protection, I have it off because that's how it came standard. I don't really mess with that too much. Now you also might see, I don't think it has it on my ESC specifically. There should be current protection, and you can actually turn that on. So say you're running a 20 amp BLHeli32 ESC, but you want to run it on 4S, and you're not sure if that's going to be enough amperage and you're going to blow your ESC. Well, you can limit the ESCs, but what will happen is once you hit that limit, it will act really funny. So unless you know that you're going to be limited, or unless you're, pretty much I lost my train of thought just now. Unless you know you're going to be limited, and the voltage, don't mess with it too much. Unless you know for a fact that you have a problem with the amperage on your ESCs. But current protection, it's right there. How did I not see that right before? So this is really handy. Like I said, you can put this up to, say, if I'm running 6S, so say I wanted to do it, I don't want to make sure my ESC doesn't blow, so I want to do 40 amps. You can go ahead and do that, but do keep in mind that this will pretty much make a hard cap. So if you're having some issues with this on, go ahead and turn it off. But if you don't notice any problems and you want to save your ESCs and don't want to worry about over current protection, don't want to worry about over putting voltage into your ESCs and blowing them up, you can go ahead and do that as well. But I'm going to leave mine off. Then we also have motor direction reversed, demag compensation, which pretty much is exactly what it does. It's pretty much, it helps desyncs. So if you have this on high, you can potentially get desyncs. And desync is pretty much when your quad just flies, you do a trick or a hard roll, and then all of a sudden it just like starts freaking out. It's a hard roll, pretty much a spin of death, and it goes right into the ground. That could happen from having a desync. It also could happen from having a bad motor as well, or a bad ESC. But you don't want to prevent that, so I'll leave this on low. And like I said before, the motor timing, you can go ahead and put that up at 21. I have mine at 16 degrees. This is the default on this ESC. So change that. You can mess around if you like to tune your quad and get the little bit of performance out of it. Go ahead and mess with motor timing. I think you'll really enjoy maybe the difference in that, along with the PWM frequency. But everything else, we don't really have to touch much. Now, if you want to flash and update the ESCs, what you have to go ahead and do is go ahead and go to Flash BLHeli, and then it'll come up with this right here. So I'm on 32.7. So actually, I do need to update these ESCs, so I'll show you guys how to do that real quick on this one. Same thing for BLHeliS. Go ahead and click on OK. And then you just want to go ahead and do is click Yes. And then it's going to go ahead and start flashing ESCs, as you can see here. That one's done. And then you can go ahead and go to the next one. So it's going to pretty much want to write the current settings. Yes, we do. We don't want to change anything. I already have everything set up how I want it. And then it's going to ask you to do the next one. So you want to go ahead and click on OK. Click Yes. And then do the next one. And then pretty much do all four. And then you're pretty much done. So let's go ahead and finish this, and then we'll go ahead and get over to the next step. So I'm done flashing all of the ESCs, and we come back to this main menu again. And there's a couple things I do wanted to point out here. We do have LED control. So if you have LEDs on your ESCs, this is where you can go ahead and play with that. I do not have any, so I'm just gonna leave them off, but you can make different colors as well. So say for instance, you have one LED, you can change, you know, red and green, and I believe that will be orange, I believe, or yellow. Not really sure. I don't know my colors. But yeah, so you can mess with this and have some cool little LEDs on your ESCs if you want to. And then also, just like BLHeliS, we do have a motors tab, and this is pretty much the end of it, really. We can go ahead and click on this right here and check all our motors. So we can go ahead and click on that. Make sure your props are off, and then go ahead and run your motors. And my motors all work, so that's great. All right, so that should do it for the video. I hope you found this video helpful regarding BLHeli32 and ESCS. Now, I didn't really go over RPM filtering because I did do a video already on RPM filtering and how to set that all up, which I'll leave a link to that down below. I'll also leave a link down below to some BLHeliS ESCs along with some BLHeli32 ESCs that I've personally used and have had good results with. So if you found this video helpful, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go ahead and give this video a like, and I'll see you guys in a future video. Peace.